Happy Memorial Day. I hope this finds you faring well after what hopefully was a relaxing weekend. In Chicago and a lot of the Midwest, the weather actually held out for us better than expected. The rain stayed away, the sun was out, the temperatures were warm. It was a really delightful weekend, and I think it was a bit of a pleasant surprise because there was forecasted a thunderstorms all week. So it felt good. It felt good to get some vitamin D for most certain. Now, as I believe most people know, Memorial Day is a time that we remember fellow Americans that gave their lives, and we celebrate them as we remember them because they gave their lives fighting for the freedoms that we are able to enjoy on a regular basis. And obviously that's a really important thing. Tonight, what I wanted to dive in to talk about was a little bit about war. Where we're in a very different war right now. The reality is that there are a lot of parallels, and there have been a lot of references made to what we as a country are dealing with right now. We are not in a combat war by any means, but we are in a war with a virus. And this thought, this kind of mentality really stung me a little bit today, and really resonated with me today. And what I was really thinking about is there's been quite a few articles released, especially in the last week, comparing the death toll within the US with previous wars. Now, for those of you that haven't been keeping up with it, within this next week, we'll most likely pass 100,000 Americans that have lost their lives to COVID-19. An astronomical number. And there have been quite a few articles in the last few weeks that have talked about relating those deaths, that number of deaths, to deaths seen during different wars that we've been in previously. Now, once again, there's 100 different ways that they track that data. Some have where they just track the combat in the actual battles. Some will talk about the whole wars. If you take a look at the entire war, combat, non-combat, everything related to that, we have lost more Americans to COVID-19 than we lost in all of the wars that we've been tracking data on, with the exception of World War I, World War II, and the Civil War. Now, World War I, within a matter of weeks, we're probably going to surpass that number too. When I really grasped it that way, it seemed really unimaginable, and it really kind of clarified the impact of this war that we're fighting now, and it really kind of made it resonate as the fact that it is, like I said, it's not a combat war, but we are fighting. We have soldiers on the front lines. Those are our medical personnel that are going to battle every day for us. So with this in mind today, I'd have to say I was a little frustrated, and kind of I will get to a point here tonight. I always do. At least I try to. What I've been frustrated with over the weekend, and what we were expecting, was the reports of those that were not good in their social distancing. I feared that as the weather has gotten better, that this could definitely be a risk, and obviously there was a lot of concern with the holiday weekend. But in the Midwest alone, there's been videos and photos just flooding the internet of events and parties that were clearly not respecting social distancing guidelines. And this was hard for me. Now, I've spent the last couple of nights talking about respecting everyone's decisions in this and being kind about it, and obviously it's harder when you see stuff like that, which to me just feels ignorant. But I started to think about it, and I said, okay, well, people do have their choices in this, and if that's the choice that they want to make, well, shouldn't they then have to follow through on their choices? If they follow through on their choices, then I have a ton of respect for it. So if you were going to go to a party with 2,500 other people and frolic in a pool and drink beer and not have a regard to social distancing, well, then I hope and I ask that you then spend the next 14 days quarantining yourself in your home, so that if you did put yourself in a high-risk situation, which you did, well, then you'll be cognizant and aware that you're not putting other people in a high-risk situation. Because realistically, I look at it that way, and I still don't agree with it. It's still not what I'm going to do, and it's still not anything that makes me proud. But at least I could say, well, there is a level of responsibility to that. And I think what I really tried to wrap my head around this weekend was, as we celebrated people that gave their lives in a war or a battle that they chose to fight in, right now it feels like the people that are maybe not respecting the social distancing as much, those are the people that don't feel the fear with it, but they're also not the ones necessarily, and they may be, but they're not the ones giving their lives for it. So I felt very conflicted about all of this. And I think that where I resolved on it was kind of what I mentioned, is that we are going to see a lot of things. I am going to have faith, it may be ignorance, but I'm going to have faith that the people that are putting themselves in those situations are wise enough and respectful enough to, if they are going to disregard certain things, that hopefully they are willing to put themselves into a situation where they're respecting their friends, family, peers, whomever it can be. Because the reality is that the longer we deal with this, the less we can open up our worlds, the longer it'll take to restart our economy. So, moving forward, looking to a new week, knowing that we're going to cross big thresholds. This is just a reminder to be smart in our social distancing, because I do believe that it's more important now than it's ever been. Our cases are still quite high. In Chicago, we are growing at a rapid rate still. So I will ask you to just be responsible and respectful with your own decisions on how you handle this. And as I've said before, respect others. That's it. To all of those that are dealing with the loss of somebody from any of our wars, even the current one we're facing, my heart goes out to you today more so than other days. And on that note, we will start another week. I will remind you to be kind to yourself and to one another. Take care of yourself. Take care of one another's. Please be smart in your social distancing. If you want to go to something, if you want to do something that is putting you more at risk, just remember that for others on the backside. A heartfelt shout out for our soldiers in this, the first responders that are going to war every day in the hospitals and the doctor's offices. Thank you. Thanks to each of you for continuing to be a part of my journey through this. Together we are getting through this, and we will make it through this next week. Even when the hard news comes, we are doing great. Be well.